Good morning. Welcome back after the constituency week. I just want to remind people that tomorrow we have an official meeting. It's only half an hour from 6:45 to 7:15 with Australia, Clerk of the Northern Territory, and it's in the Wellington building. I think there's private members' votes, so it'll be right after the votes, but we have to go to Wellington building because it's televised, or it's a video conference with Australia. So, but it is a regular, like an official meeting. But the report is, you're going to get the report tomorrow, I think, on the official Aboriginal languages. So we could discuss it on Thursday, potentially. Okay, well, yeah.
When it was brought up, it was those who were interested could attend. Is it a actual meeting, or is it just for interest's sake for those who are curious to hear?
Yeah, he mentioned that we discussed that that meeting was just for those interested before. Mr. Clerk?
Sorry, I missed the question.
Well, is it a meeting? I will attend if there's a possibility for motions and whatnot, and be there and present. But if it's just for interest's sake, I don't know that it adds anything to the report. And from my eye, just. But if it's a regular meeting, I'll be in attendance. If not, then
as it stands, it is a regular meeting.
Okay.
However, there are provisions. There was a routine motion adopted by the committee to allow it to take evidence with a reduced quorum, and the reduced quorum is 3, provided that there is 1 member of the opposition and 1 member of the government present. So if the committee agrees that it's just to take evidence from the witness, then those reduced quorum provisions would apply, and no decisions could be taken unless there were a quorum.
Okay.
But it would still be an official meeting.
Committee agree to that? Okay. Okay. So those will be the rules for that meeting tomorrow. So welcome to the 103rd meeting of the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. This meeting is being televised. Pursuant to Standing Order 111.1, subsection 1, the committee is considering the proposed appointment of Stéphane PROC to the position of Chief Electoral Officer. For members' information, Chief Electoral Officer is appointed by the resolution of the House of Commons to hold office during good behaviour for a term of 10 years. The standing orders provide that not later than the expiry of 30-day period following the tabling of the certificate of the nomination in the House, which was May 8, a notice of motion to ratify the appointment will be put under routine proceedings on the order paper. We're happy to be joined today by Mr. Perot, who is no stranger to this committee. Been here many times. Thank you. He has appeared on behalf of Elections Canada on numerous occasions and on various capacities since 2007. Since December 2016, he's been the acting Chief Electoral Officer. So, Mr. Perot, welcome back, and you can now proceed with your opening comments.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you can imagine, it is a great honor for me and an immense privilege to be here today before the members of this committee. The Chief Electoral Officer of Canada plays a role that is critical for the functioning of our electoral democracy, and that comes with important responsibilities. In the few minutes that I have, I would like to inform members of how I intend to discharge those responsibilities should this committee in the House of Commons decide to appoint me to that position. But before I do, I believe that it's appropriate to say a few words about my background and qualifications. I was born and grew up in Montreal, but I've spent my professional life in the Ottawa region, where I raised my family. I'm a lawyer, professional, that is my profession, but above all, I'm a career public servant. I have worked in the public service for over 20 years in the Department of Justice, the Privy Council Office, Elections Canada, for more than 10 years alone. Throughout my career, I have been motivated by the opportunity to contribute to the public service, and in particular, Canada's outstanding institutions. I admire above all respect for others and dedication, and believe that professional success is measured by the ability to contribute to and support performing and collaborative teams. Throughout my 20 years in the public service, I have been involved in matters related to our electoral process, including my work as in the Department of Justice and the Privy Council office. As you know, I've also been acting Chief Electoral Officer for the last 18 months and have been active in preparing the agency for the next general election. I'd like to share with you now my thoughts on how I see the role of the Chief Electoral Officer in supporting our democracy.
Electoral process that meets the evolving needs and expectations of Canadians. Our electoral process has endured the test of time and is highly regarded around the world. Yet there are clear signs that adjustments are required. Canadians are changing their voting habits. They expect and they take advantage of flexible service options. Of the 17 million Canadians who voted at the last general election, 4.5 million had voted before polling day, which is an increase of over 100% from the previous election. That trend will continue as we move towards the next general election. We see it provincially and we see it internationally. Last fall in New Zealand, 47% of those who voted before polling day. In order to meet the changing expectations of voters, we need to modernize our process and adjust it to the evolving reality. As you know, I have been leading the agency in its work to improve services at the polls through the use of electronic poll books, as well as the redesign of record-keeping procedures. These changes will allow us to speed up service to voters, in particular at advanced polls, while ensuring the integrity of the process by improving record-keeping. An equally important part of the Chief Electoral Officer's responsibilities is ensuring that the vote is inclusive. Electoral democracy is a promise of equality. It is the promise that all citizens, whatever their circumstances or condition, will have the same right and opportunity to select their representative. The quality of our electoral process has to be measured to a large extent by its inclusiveness. While legal barriers to voting have been gradually removed, exercising the right to vote remains a challenge for some Canadians. When advising Parliament on new rules or when designing services and procedures, the Chief Electoral Officer must be able to look at them not only through the eyes of the many, but also of the few for whom voting may be a challenge. Seniors, those who live in care facilities, new voters, voters with disabilities, voters in remote areas, Indigenous voters. One of the roles of the Chief Electoral Officer is to actively engage these electors and to consult them on their voting needs and their experience at the polls. In recent years, Elections Canada has set up an advisory group on disability issues, and that has been of tremendous value. But we need to do more. A few weeks ago, Elections Canada held what we called a demo day with various stakeholder communities to look at some of our changes in services and products for the next election. I invited political parties, new Canadians, youth, Indigenous Canadians, and representatives of disability groups to tell us their perception of these changes and what further improvements we can make. This past year, we also set up an ad hoc panel of teachers to hear from them on how we can improve the tools we provide schools in support of civic education. A consultative approach with end users helps to ensure that our products and services are inclusive and meet their needs. Another critical role for the Chief Electoral Officer is to preserve trust in the integrity of the electoral process. That has always been an important aspect of the mandate, but it is increasingly important today with growing concerns around disinformation, foreign influence, and cyber threats. This is why, over the last 18 months, I have been investing considerable efforts in upgrading and renewing Elections Canada's IT infrastructure. With the support of government security partners, we have redesigned our database architecture, renewed aging software, and are in the process of migrating to a new, more secure data center. However, these are not one-time efforts. Technologies evolve, systems rust out, and become vulnerable to new threats. Elections Canada must continue to renew its systems on an ongoing basis, and to do so, must improve its capacity to work across electoral cycles and not just from one election to another. A final aspect of the mandate of the Chief Electoral Officer that I would like to highlight relates to the importance of ensuring a predictable regulatory environment for parties and for candidates. As members are well aware, elections are by nature highly competitive and require a robust regulatory framework that ensures their fairness. But competing parties and candidates require, above all, clarity and predictability as to the rules and how they will be applied to them and to their opponents. Training for parties, for official agents, as well as for other participants is critical and must be the cornerstone of Elections Canada's regulatory function. Where the law is grey, it is the role of the Chief Electoral Officer to bring clarity. Disagreements on matters of interpretations are unavoidable, but Elections Canada needs to be clear and needs to be predictable. This is not always easy. The regime is sometimes complex, as members know, and predictability is often in the eyes of the beholder. But there are critical success factors. The first is transparency. As an agency, we cannot be predictable if we are not transparent. We need to explain why we take a particular position, and if at some point in time we feel compelled to change position moving forward, we need to say on what basis and explain the consequences for participants. The second is sustained engagement with regulatory stakeholders. We cannot be predictable if we work in isolation. Predictability requires a healthy regulatory relationship. We need to understand the realities and activities of parties and candidates and be able to discuss them in a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. This is an area where I believe Elections Canada, with the support of political parties, has made much progress, but efforts must be sustained for progress to continue. Monsieur le Président, si le comité...
Mr. Chair, should the committee and the House grant me their trust in appointing me to the position of Chief Electoral Officer, I will endeavour to preserve that trust by adhering to the highest standards of integrity and neutrality, and I will continue to work with parties and with parliamentarians to support and to improve our electoral democracy. Thank you very much.
For us to date, and now we'll go for a round of questioning to Mr. Sims.
Monsieur Perot, thank you very much, and thank you for your services over the past, certainly for the 18 months you said since you've been doing this. That's quite something. So, I like what you said earlier. It can't be predictable if we work in isolation. And saying that, boy, we spent a lot of time going through recommendations as put forward by the CEO, and this is obviously a regular event, which is fantastic exercise between Parliament and your office. And I noticed with impending legislation, C-76, that we've included 85% of the recent recommendations within that report. So very simply, off the top, how are we on these recommendations right now? And in your mind now embarking on this new permanent position, full-time position, where are we when it comes to the recommendations that brought forward by this committee?
Well, certainly it's been a very productive year in terms of working with this committee with the recommendations report. We were very happy to see much of the recommendations endorsed by this committee, unanimously endorsed by this committee. I think that goes a long way towards the credibility of our electoral process, and many of those endorsed also by the government. I think working collaboratively with this committee on recommendations report is important. One area where we've improved, I think, over the years is working with parties. And I'm referring in particular to the process for guidelines and interpretation notes that was introduced in 2014. And that has really created a window of opportunity to do the kind of work that we've done with this committee outside of the House with the parties in terms of understanding the regulatory framework. So I think in both instances, the collaborative nature of the work really helps build a robust and trusted electoral process.
All right. In particular, what are you working on as a short-term goal right now?
I'm sorry?
In particular, about your short-term issues that you're dealing with right now regarding some of our recommendations.
In terms of the recommendations, well, we're thrilled to see that the bill has now been introduced. I was concerned before I appeared before this committee on the main estimates that we did not have a bill then. We do have a bill now. We are refining an implementation plan for that bill, and we will begin to work on that over the course of the summer. We are at a point where whether or not it's passed, I mean, we have to work on different scenarios. So we have to be ready to roll out an election based on their current legal framework, and we also have to start preparing for an alternative framework. And so over the course of the summer, we will work on new manuals and training modules. In the fall, as I said when I appeared before this committee on September 1st, we're doing integrated testing of our IT systems. Once those systems are solidified, we can start looking at changes that relate to Bill C-76. So we will be working at implementation as the bill progresses through this House and through the other House. And if adjustments need to be made, then we'll be making them along the way.
You put a lot of emphasis on your training, training of officers that are involved in the election, and I wholeheartedly agree, especially when you have so many ridings across the country, and you have 335 of them in those positions. The training that is going ahead right now regarding IT, are you confident about this and the method of training that you're doing for the people coming up to the next election? So especially the new ones.
So we've begun training returning officers for the next election. Yes. They're aware of our recommendations. One of the things we've worked on with returning officers is building more of what we call a one-team culture. It used to be largely, I think, for historical reasons, because these were governor and council appointees, that there was a gap between the field, what we call the field returning officers in Elections Canada. Now we work in a much more integrated way, and so they are part and parcel of the team. They've been involved in the transformation projects. They're aware of the legislation. They're aware of where we want to go, and so there's much greater cohesion. So I'm confident that they will be supporting us well for the next election.
And of course, with the recommendations that we discussed here, that should make it easier for the transition when you do the training. I realize that. Just to very quickly, I'd be deeply regretful if I didn't pass on my experience as far as remote areas. I live in a rural area, as you know. I've mentioned it several times. One of the keys of rural areas is that we're a transient crew. A lot of us work in transient ways, which is go away for 2 weeks, come home for 2 weeks, this sort of thing. So there's a lot of volatility around a month period, or certainly around the writ period. One of the improvements, because I've been here a while, one of the improvements over the past couple of elections has been allowing one or two of those offices to stay open during the entire writ period, where people can go in and vote whenever they wish. Maybe you could expand that in rural and remote areas, but I'll just, perhaps you'd like to comment on that.
Sure. I mean, we, apart from the 338 returning officers, we have about I think around 150 additional what we call satellite returning officers. This is because some ridings in Canada are, as you know, very, very large. It is not possible to properly service voters from one location. So we have multiple offices in the larger ridings, and that is something that we will continue, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. Just finally, you know, in the last session of Parliament, when we were going through the quote-unquote Fair Elections Act, unquote, one of the things that was talked about was that, you know, there was a huge argument as to what is the role of Elections Canada when it comes to engaging the public. On one side of the argument, you had your only role is to say to people when and where to vote, of all 338 ridings. On the other side, we were saying public engagement to encourage the exercise of democracy for young people, for Indigenous, for rural areas. What do you see in this role of yours as to the way Elections Canada can best engage with the public?
Assuming the law is changed, of course.
Oh, I always assume laws will change, sir.
I think it's a bit of both, to be quite frank. I think the debate was more one of principle than one of practical concerns, in the sense that I certainly see that during the writ period, our role is to inform voters about where, when, and how to register and vote, and make sure they have the correct information. Motivating voters during that period is a tricky thing. It's hard to motivate without touching upon issues, and that is something for parties and candidates to do. It's not our role to define the hot button issues for the elections, the one that trigger participation. So during the writ period, our role is to inform about where, when, and how to register and vote. I think when you look at it more broadly, what we found unfortunate with the current legislation is that when you're engaging youth, for example, and you're speaking to groups that straddle the line in Cégep, for example, au Québec, between 17 and 18-year-olds, that you're not supposed to talk about the importance of voting to young voters just because they're 18-year-olds. So I think that's a bit unfortunate. I think we do have a role to play to educate the population, especially youth, outside of the election period about the importance of our democratic institutions and about the importance of voting. But when the writs are issued, then our role shifts, and our role is to inform voters about their voting options.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sims. Now we'll go on to Mr. Richards.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing with us your experience and your background, and certainly have enjoyed a good working relationship with you here on this committee in the past. And if you're confirmed, we'll certainly, I've no doubt, to continue to enjoy a good relationship. So thank you for being here today. Kind of want to walk a bit through. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk and speculation in the media about sort of the process around your appointment, and so I'll have some questions that I guess kind of get to that to some degree. Obviously, that helps us to assess the choice being made. So let me start by asking you when you first submitted your application to be the next Chief Electoral Officer.
So I'm not good with dates, but if I remember correctly, it was around the end of September that a posting was done for the position, and I submitted my application within a couple of days of that posting. I was quite ready for it to happen, and that's when it happened.
Okay. And do you know much more about how that process was conducted? Like, it was opened. You were obviously interviewed at that time. Do you know? I mean, obviously there was at least one other that was interviewed. Do you know how many others were interviewed? Do you know how the process kind of unfolded from there?
Mr. Chair, I certainly can speak at fair length to my experience with the process. I don't think it's for me to speak to other people who may or may not have been involved in the process. In my case, I submitted my application. There was an interview, I believe, in early November, so the process ended at the end of October, if I'm not mistaken. Early November, there was an interview with members of the Privy Council office, the Minister Gould's office, PMO was there. There was, I think, 5 or 6 people who were there, so it was a fairly extensive interview. That was followed by a reference check, so it was a 360 reference, so someone from the outside, someone from a former employer, and a current employee or former employee. That was before Christmas. It was followed by a series of psychometric testing. So there's some online testing, 2 separate tests that are done online, and then there's a 90-minute live interview with a psychologist that basically it's a mental agility kind of test. Again, very, very thorough. It goes on for about 90 minutes. So that was before Christmas. I did get a call, I think in February, from Minister Gould. I understand from her at that point that she was just doing a personal check on all of the people in the list. I don't know who these people were. So she called me for a brief interview over the phone. And that was the last formal aspect of the process.
Okay. So, and that, you said that had occurred in February?
If I remember correctly,
that was... recall?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I do have other questions, but I think given the fact that it's, obviously Mr. Perot has already indicated that some of the questions that maybe would be required in terms of answers, he wouldn't have them. So I'm going to just make a notice of motion here that the Procedure and House Affairs Committee invite the Acting Minister of Democratic Institutions, Scott Bryson, to appear within 2 weeks of the adoption of this motion to answer questions regarding the appointment of a new Chief Electoral Officer for no less than 2 hours, and that this meeting be televised. So I'm moving notice of motion for that, but I do have further questions, so I'll move to those. Were you informed? So last, that conversation with the minister happened in February. That followed all, the other testing you indicated. It followed an interview that included even the Prime Minister's office back in shortly after you applied in October. But were you then informed at some point that another candidate had been chosen for the position?
So I got a phone call from the senior personnel in Privy Council office telling me that letters would be going out to parties that day or the next day, I'm not sure, and that my name was not on those letters. They did not tell me whose name was on those letters. Okay. And that was just a day before the Toronto Star article that everybody's familiar with. And then there was nothing after that until about a month later. I received a second call, again from senior personnel in Privy Council office, asking whether I was still interested in the position. And of course, I am still interested in that position. And I said yes. And at that point, there was an indication that letters would be issued to parties with my name on those letters.
Okay, that was someone in the Privy Council's office in both instances? Okay. So you weren't informed as to what had occurred in the interim, why you were receiving this second call? You didn't inquire, I guess?
I did not inquire, and I was not informed as to the reasons why they were doing a second set of letter. Okay.
So I think then the next question I had, I think you've probably already answered, but I'll ask it anyway just to be sure. When that first candidate was chosen, as obviously someone else was chosen, you weren't consulted at all on that candidate, obviously?
No.
Okay. And then what was the process following that? Like, you were simply just asked if you were still interested in the position, and there was no further interviews or other types of process that occurred? It was just simply, hey, something's changed, are you still interested?
Exactly.
Okay. And the other question I had in this regard as well is, I believe that May 12th Canada Gazette, that the government was still receiving applications for this position up until May 17th. Were you aware of that?
I think the process indicated that there was a 30-day posting, but that names would be received. I think it's standard for all senior appointments. Names would be received until an appointment is formally made. So I believe that was the understanding from the outset of the process.
Okay. What do I have? Okay. All right. I think what I will do is simply indicate at this point that obviously there are some questions here that remain unanswered. I mean, obviously we appreciate the background and the qualifications of the candidate that's being put forward here. However, obviously there's been some kind of irregularity happen in this process. No one seems to know what it is. Obviously the witness here today can't answer to that, and that's why the motion that I have moved, I think it's important in order for this to be properly assessed, that there be some answers given to that to determine, was the best candidate in fact chosen. If this process seems to be bungled so badly, especially given the pattern we've seen of this government in bungling these types of appointments, we do need to kind of get a sense, and I think that's why that motion is so important. Obviously, I've made the notice that I will be moving that, and we'll look forward to the next round of questioning.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Richards. Now on to Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again. Let me just stay on process for a moment. I can understand it might be a little uncomfortable just because you weren't in charge of the process. You were simply involved in it. To pick up on the timeline for a moment, when the government, at any point in the process, the interview process, the conversations with the minister, were you made aware of any consultations that had happened with the other parties in Parliament?
So the only thing I was made aware of was that's the day before the Star article, that what letters would be going out. I think it was the day before the article. Letters would be or had just been gone out, and I was not on those letters.
Right. In terms of the first nominee.
Correct. That's all I know.
If you're successful in this, you would be an officer of Parliament.
Absolutely.
Hired by Parliament for 10 years.
Correct.
I have 7 minutes to ask you questions. I usually take longer to hire somebody in my office than 7 minutes. I think most of us do as members of Parliament. I hope most of us do. It puts us in a difficult position because the law says that the government, on officers of Parliament, which you would be one, is required to meaningfully consult with the other parties. The same notice, you got more notice than we did. You got a day's notice. We saw it in the Toronto Star as to who was going to be nominated for the new Chief Electoral Officer. That name was then withdrawn. No reasons given, privately or publicly, by the government. Your name was put forward. And I like you, by the way. We've had many conversations, so don't take any of this personally. But this is the process that we've been subjected to as MPs. We have to vote yea or nay to support your nomination to do the job for Parliament on behalf of all Canadians. I think one of the most important jobs we hire for here, just the safe, fair conducting of our elections. Would you agree with?
I certainly would agree with that.
Yeah. So this is awkward in that we have a few minutes to ask you questions. Let me ask you something very specifically in terms of qualifications. There's certainly new threats than when you started with Elections Canada some years ago. Foreign threats, foreign governments, foreign actors, fake news, the influence of social media on our outcomes. Can you give us a brief description on what skills you might bring to the job in facing these threats down that are significant, as we saw in the US, we saw in Great Britain and other places?
I think these are indeed quite significant threats. They're emerging in large part driven by the opportunities that technology provides. So that allows penetration by foreign actors in particular. It's an issue that is much broader than Elections Canada. Certainly, we have a role to play. The commissioner has a role to play.
What's the main role you have to play in that? Because it is it's the information commissioner, it's Facebook, it's Twitter, who have responsibilities as private citizens, private actors. What's the main role Elections Canada has to play?
Our main role is making sure that Canadians have the right information on where, how, when, register, and to vote. So one of the things that we're doing at the next election, apart from monitoring the social media environment, which we've done at the last election as well, is we're going to create a repertoire of all of our public communications. So if there's any concern that a communication is not from Elections Canada or may not be accurate, we'll have publicly on our website every public communication so that it can be verified by parties, by candidates, by Canadians, by the news outlets.
C-76, this proposed bill, we think we're not sure. Is it under time allocation yet, Scott? No? Under the threat of time allocation.
You're good.
They've given notice to time allocate, which is interesting because I'm just looking at quotes from my friend Mr. Sims, that election laws should never be put under time allocation. Never. I know, it's weird. Said Mr. Easter, so said Mr. Lamoureux, who likes to say a lot, is also on record because the government is now in a position of doing what the previous government did on something so fundamental as our election laws, by taking a unilateral or arbitrary approach with them. Rather than consulting with us beforehand, they didn't. You had a deadline for new election laws to be brought in, to be passed. Was it end of April, May 1st? Elections Canada said we want the bill in hand, in law, in order to prepare for the next election.
Correct. So
that didn't happen.
It did not. We do have a bill.
You do have a bill.
And what we are doing, which is somewhat unusual, is that we will start preparation towards implementation.
Anticipating its passage.
Anticipating its passage, adjusting as required, because I cannot take for granted, A, that it will pass, or B, that it will pass in the exact state that it is introduced. So
because there's some things in there, as New Democrats we agree with, reversing the vouching requirements that were done away with under the previous Unfair Elections Act. Education component that was talked about earlier. We want to see these things succeed. They were sitting for 18 months untouched by the government. No sense of urgency. Now they're rolled in. But it's been rolled in as an omnibus bill now, with other things that we do have legitimate questions on, freedom of speech. Let me ask you one about data, because that's an important thing that Elections Canada deals with. You give the parties a lot of data, personal information of Canadians.
Correct.
Are the parties subject to the Privacy Act right now?
They are not.
Do you believe they should be?
We've recommended in the past and continue to believe that they should be required to comply with basic privacy rules.
Yes.
10 basic privacy principles that you find in PIPEDA that are inspired by...
Do you think this should be suggested or in law?
I think it should be in law. I think they need to be required to do that, and I think there should be some oversight.
By who?
I think ideally it's the Privacy Commissioner. He's the expert in that area, but there may be other options. We've recommended other options in the past.
Because we've seen with the Cambridge Analytica scandal, Brexit, the Trump election, that the ability to manipulate using data, vast amounts of data, I mean, the government gave Cambridge Analytica a pretty sizable contract. The ability to manipulate voters going into the voting booth with fake news, with alternative facts, and that vast amount of data is an actual threat to our democracy. Would you agree?
I think it's important that we be prudent about how personal information is used in the context of the electoral competition. Yes.
And are we prudent right now?
I think there needs to be... Do we know? I think, well, we don't know a whole lot.
We don't know.
Yes.
We don't know what parties do with the... Can parties sell personal information of Canadians right now?
Parties are... it's no simple answer. Parties can only use the information that we provide.
Yes.
for purposes related to a federal election.
How about other sources of data?
Well, that's the issue. So it's all put into a database that includes various sources, and we're not quite sure which sources. And at that point, it's impossible to tell whether the name or the address of a person comes from Elections Canada or from another source.
Yeah, so Elections Canada is essentially blind to how parties collect and then use data in the course of an election.
Correct.
Should you be made aware of that? Do you want to have that knowledge as to how parties use data, or the Privacy Commissioner at least?
I think Canadians need to know how
Right.
parties.
Thank-
That's the key point.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Chair.
Cullen. Now we'll go on to Ms. Tassi.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pearl, for being here today and your testimony and all the great work that you've done to date. So with respect to C-76, about 85% of what's contained in there are actually recommendations from the CEO. So I trust that you're pretty pleased with that.
Absolutely.
And looking forward to the implementation of those recommendations and what other things that are contained in the legislation. So you mentioned, just in terms of the process now, you mentioned that you are refining the implementation plan and that over the course of the summer you'll work on the implementation. So just with respect to your progress, can you comment on what you perceive as your potential progress in that plan?
So we haven't begun executing that plan. This summer we'll be starting work on the guidebooks for poll workers and the training material. So what we will need to do is build those guidebooks based on the current legislation, but also contemplate adjustments to those guidebooks for C-76. When I appeared on the main estimates, I said we are migrating 27 systems to a new data center, and we need to do integrated testing September 1st. We will proceed with that plan, and once we've done the integrated testing, and things are going well, it's a tight schedule, but things are going quite well, once we've solidified, then we will look at what IT changes are required for BLC 76. I think we're looking at 18 systems that are affected by BLC 76. We will look to minimize. In some cases, they're minor changes. In others, they're more comprehensive. So once we've done the integrated testing, we will then look at the other IT changes that are absolutely required for implementation of C-76. If it's not absolutely required, it will be deferred. Okay? And then we're going to do a second series of integrated testing January 1st. And hopefully at that point in time, there will be no further impacts on the IT system so that we can do, as we have planned, our simulations in March in the field with the new systems.
Okay, so you're confident with the progress that you have planned, with your plan moving forward, that implementation is doable?
I'm confident that it is doable. I think we'll have to limit what we leverage in terms of a lot of the changes that are brought forward that came from the former CEO's recommendations are changes that provide flexibility to the Chief Electoral Officer. We don't have to exercise that flexibility in all cases for the next general election. So in some cases we will. In other cases where it requires significant investments of energy and preparation, we'll defer that to the next election. So there is flexibility in the Act on how we implement this.
Okay, very good. With respect to the process, congratulations. It sounds like the process was very robust and thorough. You mentioned that you had an interview of 5 or 6 people, then a reference check, which was a 360 reference check. Online tests, how extensive was the online testing?
The online part is fairly simple. It's more personality type. But that's followed by a live interview. That's more into mental abilities.
So that was the 90-minute
yes
live interview. Okay, and then a call, and then a private interview or an interview with the minister.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'd like to pass the rest of my time to Mr. Sims.
First of all, I neglected to mention Happy Seal Products Day to everybody, by the way. I just wanted to do that only because I'm sure all coastal MPs agree. Well, I'm not so sure about you, but yeah. So thank you for that, and Happy Seal Products Day. One of the things you talked about was the polling, the electronic poll books. Are we really going to be ready with this material for the next election? because I've heard a lot about this, and I think it's a wonderful thing. But to what extent are you confident that this is going to be, working the way you want it to work for the next election?
So things are progressing well in accordance with our schedule, so I'm happy to report on that. We are planning, so we're completing the design of the procedures in the poll book as we speak, and we will be using the poll book in a by-election as a pilot next fall. So there, in all likelihood, will be some by-elections next fall. So before we use it in a general election, we want to be able to use it in a by-election. The other thing is that we've decided to roll out the poll books progressively. So we will be rolling out poll books at the next election only at advanced polls. So we're taking this in bites. For the subsequent general election, we're looking at rolling out poll books across both regular polls and advanced polls. But for the first general election, we want to use them at advanced polls where we had the lineups at the last election, and where we will have lineups if we don't do anything about it for the next election.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because one of the things I fear in this case, obviously some will still resort to paper way in which they did it before. Some will be creating bottlenecks in the system, which I gather is what happened in the last go around. And certainly to avoid all these bottlenecks is going to be crucial. Given the fact that there's such a large reliance on what is going to be electronic in the next election.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I also just wanted to, I don't know if I have enough time. I have a minute? Oh, I probably could do that in a minute, okay. I want to go back again to the prospect of foreign voters, right? Or, sorry, I should say Canadians outside of Canada who want to vote. That was a big issue in the last election about, the 5-year rule and so on and so forth. Where are you on that file right now? Because there was a huge pushback in the last Parliament from Canadians living abroad who felt that their rights were taken away.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, this is a matter that is also before the courts as we speak,
right.
But it's also a part of Bill C-76. We foresee a fairly manageable increase in participation from voters abroad. That we are not concerned about the volume increase, and we are confident that we can manage that. I think when we look at the longer-term future, what we have to improve is the ability to enable those voters to cast their ballot in a timely way. Voters that are living outside, especially of capitals or large cities, have a hard time sending in their ballot so that it be counted on time. So we need to improve.
That was a question I had about the fact that people living outside of capital cities, it must be extreme. I'm done. Is that what you're saying? Go ahead. Can I get a final comment on that?
Sure. For me, yes. So, I mean, this is a project that we have put aside for the next election because of everything else that's going on. But right now, people can apply online to receive a ballot kit. But then the ballot kit is sent by traditional mail, and that has to be returned by traditional mail. So there's a two-way traditional mail exchange, which is quite long. In the future, we would like to have a downloadable kit. So they apply online, they receive the kit online, they download it, they print it, and then they send it by traditional mail. So hopefully that will reduce the impact.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
Good, thank you. There's been some questions that have touched on this a little bit already today, but I don't think we've really gotten to the key point of the matter, and that's this. Last time you were here, you indicated to us that April 30th was sort of the sort of drop dead date at which we would need to have changes in place to make it possible to fully implement before the next election. Obviously, that deadline is passed, and we saw legislation, I guess, come forward that day, but it's certainly not passed, and it's nowhere near that stage at this point. So you had indicated at that time that anything beyond that would require some compromises in its implementation. You've also indicated today that there would be some significant changes that, if this legislation was to pass, you would probably have to defer to the next election. So can you give us some indication on what some of those compromises will be with this piece of legislation that's before us now, and what some of those changes are that wouldn't be able to be implemented in time for the next election?
Sure. So the first thing I mentioned was that in many ways, the proposed legislation provides the CEO with discretion to do certain activities or not to do them, to redo the voting procedures at a poll in a different way. We will not redo the voting procedures at regular polls for this next election. This is something that I decided and told this committee last February because of where we were in the cycle, but we're working on the advance poll scenario. The bill also allows us to provide a new service, which is a mobile advance poll. So in remote areas where there's often not enough population or workers to support 4 days of advance polling, we could do a mobile advance polls. At this point in time, we do not know whether we'll be leveraging that capacity because it has an impact on some of our systems to produce the voter information card, and the priority will go on system changes that are mandated by the legislation. So that's an example. There are major changes to the political financing regime that have impact on IT systems. We will focus on those changes that are critical to process the reimbursements for candidates and the party returns. Some of the reports, whether it's Bill C-50, the fundraising reports, or third parties, will be posted on PDF. So a PDF is searchable online, but it's not searchable across reports. So the level of transparency by a PDF report is not optimal. Of course, in the future, we'll move away from PDFs, but for this election, this is the kind of compromise that we have to do to make sure that we are ready to roll out the election in an orderly way.
Okay. You mentioned also that you would be doing preparations based on the current framework and then some alternative preparations based on the potentially new framework. What are some of the major differences in that regard in terms of the preparations and what's your confidence level that you would be able to do 2 sets of preparations based on that?
There's a number of differences that affect the process of polls. For example, all of the oaths will have to be redone. The process for attestation will now, if it's passed, become a vouching process, which we're quite familiar with. It was done before. There's the issue of the voter information card as proof of address, as you're well aware. These do not present major challenges in terms of implementation. There is quite a bit of work to do on the implementation of the Canadian Forces vote, and so that will be critical work. There's quite a bit of work to do as well on the political financing side. So the new categories of expenses, new reimbursements level, all of that is processed currently with IT systems that are fairly antiquated. They're not very flexible, and so there's a fair amount of work there.
Can you give a bit more detail in that regard? Like the political financing, obviously that's a pretty critical element. Can you give us a bit more detail as to what you see the challenges being, what compromises might be required there? I know we don't have a lot of time, but if you
well, as I indicated, what we will do, we will implement this law. So the reports will be published. The question is whether they'll be published in a PDF format or whether they'll be published in a fully searchable database. For candidates, I'm quite confident that they will be published in a fully searchable database that allows to do horizontal audits across campaigns and through the EDAs to make sure that contributions are not exceeded, for example. So we'll focus on those areas where technology is more critical to the process and to the timely reimbursement of candidates' expenses. Of course, you rely on those reimbursements for the next general election or by-election, and we have to make those reimbursements as quickly as possible.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Sahota.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to get your opinion a little bit more about the voter information card. There's been a lot of talk about it, and I believe already some misinformation that is starting to spread about the use of the voter information cards as a piece of ID for your residents. I know it was one of the CEO's recommendations, and I can't help but think about it through your intro as well when you talked about making it simpler for all people to engage in the democratic process, regardless of their background and where they live. So young people, Indigenous, seniors, people with disabilities. Can you tell me a little bit about your views and how you see this being implemented once legislation passes?
Sure. As we know, for the vast majority of Canadians, proving their identity is not a problem. Proving that their address is a bit more challenging, but for most Canadians, it's not a problem. About 14% of Canadians do not have a driver's license, adults in Canada. So for these people, there is no widespread document available that has their name and address on it. So it can be a challenge. If you're looking at utilities bills in a household, they are often under one name and not the other, right? And so having the voter information card as proof of address, when the name on the voter information card matches the name on another piece of ID that will be required, is of assistance to those voters. And when we talk about that, we talk about it in terms of accessibility. But I think there is an aspect that's also important, and that's an aspect of dignity. I think for voters to be able to vote independently is a profound matter of dignity. If you have an elderly couple where one of the spouses does not drive and does not have utilities bills in their name, having to rely on their spouse to support them to be allowed to vote an election, to me, is a matter of fundamental dignity. And it goes beyond the simple issue of accessibility.
So I was wondering if you could, you've mentioned it, but because we're well versed on the topic, I think because we're televised today, it could be helpful to people to understand that the voter ID card is not something that would just be used alone, and if so, how? So can you get into a little bit of the details, the technical details of that?
So correct. The voter information card would, under the proposed legislation, be allowed to be used in combination with another piece of identification. So this is a case where someone comes out at the poll, they have a piece of identification that does not have their address on it or does not have their current address on it. They have their voter information card, and their name on the voter information card must match the name on their other piece of ID. And the fact that they are coming to the poll with those two documents together suggests very strongly that they've received it at their home. So the level of integrity in that process, to me, is very high.
How many people would you say, since you've been in this role pretty much for 18 months now, were precluded from voting because of issues that came up with not having the proper identification last election? So
we do not have data on the by-elections. What we know from the Labour Force survey, which is a high-quality survey done independently by StatsCan at the last general election, is that about 152,000 Canadians were not able to prove their identity and address at the last election, and 50,000 were turned away. And so for these electors, the voter information card would, for most of them, be of great assistance.
Where would you place your level of concern when it comes to fraud with voter ID cards and the balance of allowing people the right to exercise their right to vote?
There is no indication that there is any fraud so we used the voter information card as a proof of address in 2011. There was no indication of any concern or fraudulent use of that document in that general election. What was shown in that general election is that there were record-keeping problems. There were people who were vouched for example, and the process for recording the vouching was not properly done. And when you look at the voter information card as a piece of address, it reduces the requirements to rely on vouching. So in terms of integrity, I much prefer the voter information card in combination with another piece of ID than the vouching process.
Mm-hmm. And how can that be, the record keeping, be corrected this time around?
So there's a few things. One of it is automation. A lot of the forms now will be automated, and you need to populate those fields in order to move forward to complete the form. So the system will assist poll workers to make sure that they fill every part of the form. If it's not filled, it will not process. So that's one thing. The other thing is that we've done a complete review of the forms to make sure that they're easier to fill and easier to train on. So whether you're having a manual process or a automated process, we think we will see improvements. Now, we have, as you know, an external audit done of compliance with the procedures at the polls at every election since the last general election and by-elections did. So that provides a benchmark. So we'll be able to use that and assess improvements in record keeping using the poll books at advanced polls and using the improved manual process otherwise, vis-a-vis the traditional process that we used.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Soda. Mr. Reid.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, how long do I have this time?
5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. I wanted to just ask about Bill C-76 and trying to respond to the needs that will be, or demands that will be placing upon Elections Canada. The Act contemplates a reduced maximum length writ period, but it also anticipates a new pre-writ period. So we have a situation in which some of what we would normally think of as being associated with the writ has actually been moved forward to June 30th, 2019, which by my math is 13 months and 8 days from now. So the question is, I don't actually know if that puts a new administrative burden on Elections Canada that kicks in at that point, as opposed to the other things for which you have an extra month or two. Is that the case, that you'll be facing some systems that will need to be in place by that time?
It certainly requires us to redo all of our manuals, and in particular the manual for third parties, because that regime is completely being redone. So we need to do those manuals, and we do the manuals, as you know, now in a consultative process, which I think is an excellent process. We involve the parties, but that means we provide a draft, and parties get to respond, and we publish that in both languages, and we publish our responses to those drafts. So we have to redo all of that in time for the third parties and the parties to be aware of the new requirements. So in that case, it's less of a systems change, because we will limit systems impact, but it's a training and guidance change.
Right, that's true. Training is, I remember going through a similar discussion with yourself and also with your predecessor, Mr. Mayron, regarding some of the timelines we would have faced if we'd attempted to have a referendum on electoral reform, and had we then proceeded with a new electoral system by 2019. And I remember the training came up as being the first of the goalposts that had to be met chronologically. I wanted to ask you about the issue regarding rebates to parties. One of the worries I have had, and you'd know from previous conversations we've had in the past at this committee, I am very concerned with the unintentional destabilization of our system if one of the parties finds itself impoverished, for example, by being engaged in very expensive litigation involving Elections Canada. Another area that concerns me is with regard to rebates is this. I can imagine a situation in which we have a minority government following the next election, and we find ourselves going into a second election within 12 months. These things have happened, not frequently, but they have happened in the past. I know you want to expedite rebates as much as you can. Is there a danger you could have a situation in which rebates come back to one party faster than to others, or to one in a riding to one campaign faster than another, all things being the same? And having identified this problem, is there any way of trying to ensure that there's always as level a playing field as is possible?
So there's a few elements of answer there. Apart from parties, which of course we do party by party, there's no other way of doing it. For candidates, we don't do party by party. So we take them by region, and we don't prioritize based on party affiliation. So it comes in, if you filed earlier, then you will get your audit done faster. So there is, of course, there are of course candidates who get their rebates faster than others, but that would not be across party lines. I do think we need to improve the timeliness of audits. I think that today, in today's world, timeliness of information is critical. People talk more and more about of real-time reporting of contributions. We're not there yet, but I'm pretty confident we'll get there soon enough. And as soon as the election is done, people want to see the returns, and they want to make sure that they're audited. So we need to do some improvements on how we do audits to candidates. May not be for the next election, however, but we need to reduce that timeline. both to increase the transparency and to make sure that reimbursements are done in a timely fashion if there is a minority, for example, that candidates have that reimbursement to fight the next election.
Yeah, I recognize the other side of the equation is you don't want to reimburse expenses that are not legitimately claimed, and I suspect once one has reimbursed money, it's hard to undo the reimbursement as a practical matter, whatever the law may say. I had the interesting experience after the last election of getting reimbursed for more than I'd actually spent, and subsequently had to. Tell us more. Well, what happened was you get reimbursed by 15% of the allowable limit.
Correct. So there's a percentage of upfront reimbursement, and because of the uniqueness of the last election, because the amount of the spending limit was prorated to the length of the election, and those spending limits were so high that A, very few candidates spent to that limit, and B, many candidates got an initial reimbursement, which is designed to help them pay off their debts, got an initial reimbursement that was greater than their end reimbursement. So we had to chase a fair amount of money after the last election.
Yeah, that's what you described the situation that happened to us. Yeah, that's an interesting a problem. My greater concern is simply money being reimbursed at different times to different parties in the event there's a writ very, very shortly after the election. But I suppose what we can do is maybe just think about that, and then this may or may not prove to be an issue. We won't know until then. In the remaining time, I have just a few seconds. I just wanted to say congratulations on being here, on getting the post. I think you're extraordinarily well qualified, and I'm very pleased indeed to see that we'll be enjoying working with you for the next decade.
Thank you.
We're technically out of time, but with liberalism, we'll give, if Mr. Cullen wants a minute to...
It would be very helpful.
Okay, go ahead.
Something we haven't touched on yet. I'm just reading through the Supreme Court decision about early election results coming out from one part of the country prior to polls closing, in some cases 3, 4, 5 hours before polls close. 4 hours would be accurate on the West Coast, has in the past and currently led to some Western alienation. It's something to be heading with your kids to the polls when you hear results coming forward, and whoever Mansbridge is now determining the results of the election before folks in Alberta, Yukon, and British Columbia voted. Is there anything we can do about this to respect the Supreme Court's decision that it's actually an infringement on Section 321 of the Canada Elections Act to be allowing significant results to be posted, and so that you have unequal voting in terms of information, which is protected under the Elections Act, that all voters vote equally? Many of my voters say, is there not something that can be done? Changing closing times, changing reporting times so that folks in places like Scott's Riding wait a little bit?
There is no perfect solution to that. As you know, the limit of the prohibition on disclosure of the results was lifted by Parliament because there was no way of containing the results.
But the Supreme Court didn't agree with that.
Now, the Supreme Court validated the previous rule, right, which allowed, but the rule was lifted by Parliament.
That's right.
And so now the information flows. There is some staggering of the voting hours.
Not
you
much.
get to a point, if you increase the staggering of the voting hours, then that creates some unevenness in terms of voting opportunities. If you sit on the results for too long, people are suspicious. And
you simply started counting a little later, I don't mean you have the results that you then sit on and creating that suspicion. People are staying up late in Newfoundland anyways. They are too.
The average age of our poll workers is quite high. These are people who work 16-hour days.
Understood.
And in many cases, I would call it cruel and unusual to extend the counting hours beyond what they already are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. We've had great work with you over the last year on the various recommendations from your office, so we really appreciate all the service you've provided to us and your great public service. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And just for the committee, on Thursday, tomorrow you'll get the Aboriginal Hours report. If we could look at that for the second hour, and if in the first hour the committee and any subcommittee members that want to, in camera, can educate the independents on our subcommittee's report, so that they are aware of it before it's tabled in Parliament. Ms. Tassi?
Would the Chief Human Resource Officer be attending at that?
Oh, yeah, we'll invite them and see if they're available as a resource. Okay? Oh.
Could you also make it explicit that members can content
Of the subject. Okay, well, we've already done that, but you can share the, it's a confidential report, as you know, but you can share it with your caucus colleagues. That was the idea, to go back to your, not the text of it, but, and the other thing is, we'll allow the independents, as you can, to bring one staff member to that confidential briefing. Is that okay with people?
So just for clarification, Chair, my understanding was that the sharing of that report was to be a verbal sharing, and we are not to circulate anything in writing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, my understanding is Conservatives will do it a week after this. But, okay. Thank you.